Welcome to the Mayor's Forum. My name is Peter Miller. I'm the Township Administrator for Harbor Township. This forum is going to be slightly different than ones in the past. Mayor McCullough's hosted all the other Mayor's Forums, but today Mayor McCullough is the guest of his own forum. We will be having a conversation reflecting back on his 33 years of service as the mayor. So Mayor, the first question I have for you is, were you born in Egg Harbor Township?
I was born in the West Atlantic City section of Egg Harbor Township. My grandparents had a house there. My mother grew up there. She went to Pleasantville High School, and then we moved from West Atlantic City when I was rather young, back to Atlantic City to my other grandmother's house, and from there we moved to Margate, where I spent most of my youth. I went to St. James Grammar School, graduated there. I was probably the only male in my family that didn't graduate Holy Spirit. I decided to go to Atlantic City High School, which I graduated. And from there, I went to Rider University, and then I had some courses also at Rutgers and Rowan. And then I went into the business that my grandfather started. Bill McFarland, and I worked in it for 10 years. I bought it in 1972. It was called Ace Auto Supply. I expanded it from Atlantic City to Absecon to Egg Harbor Township, built the MGM Mall. I owned a number of commercial rental properties in the Atlantic City, Absecon, and Egg Harbor Township area. And then I married Georgine McCabe, who was also an Atlantic City girl. She grew up in the Chelsea Heights area. We had have four sons, and we have 8 grandkids. And then I sold the Ace Auto Supply in 1993, basically working in it for 30 years, owning it for 20. Built the MGM Mall, we sold that, and then I took a position as Deputy Director of Engineering with the South Jersey Transportation Authority that operates the Atlantic City Expressway and the Atlantic City International Airport. And I put 15 years in there, and I retired from that. And now it's my plan to retire from 33 years with serving Egg Harbor Township, mostly in the capacity as mayor.
Now, you had family members generations before you that were also elected officials in Atlantic County. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
My great-grandfather, his name was Anthony Ruffew. He was the mayor of Atlantic City in the late 20s, during the roaring 20s, until he was accidentally hit by a train and killed. My mother was involved in politics to the extent where she was a director with the Atlantic City Convention Authority, which was at that time was really a happening position. We booked a lot of conventions into Atlantic City. With the advent of casino gaming, the convention business has fallen off because of the fact that the casinos really didn't want to give up the rooms. So if you had a 10,000 delegate convention, you didn't have enough rooms for them, and therefore we couldn't book the shows that we used to. Although now the casinos themselves are getting back to building their own convention centers and going after that business.
Okay. So how did you get involved in politics in Egg Harbor Township? What prompted that?
Well, it's funny. I moved to Egg Harbor Township in the early 70s. I built a house in Seaview Harbor. I joined the local Republican club. I was appointed early on to the zoning board. And then there was a primary. Art Foster was the mayor at the time. And a group of people asked me to run, and I ran in the Republican club, and I lost by a couple votes. And I said, "Well, I'm not going to go out and campaign for the position." So a group of people got together and they wrote my name in 1985 in the primary. And I did not campaign. As I said, I wasn't going to campaign, but I did ask my wife the night before if she would consider voting for me, and she said she couldn't because she was a Democrat.
Was a surprise.
Oh, and she is now a hard-nosed Republican, worse than me. I mean, she follows the federal politics, you know, and I quite frankly don't. I try to take care of the local stuff.
Well, when you lived in Seaview Harbor, was there anything that happened with the marina there that prompted you to get more involved in saving Seaview Harbor, so to speak?
Seaview Harbor community is all about boating and fishing. And there was 2 lagoons in Seaview Harbor. And the original developer had let a portion of the what would have been an additional residential area get washed out by the ocean. Mm-hmm. The bulkhead was destroyed. So consequently, the 2 lagoons started filling in, and they filled completely in. And that basically ruined Seaview Harbor. So I was elected president of the Seaview Harbor Association, and that was just a civic association. And we dredged the lagoons, and we built a breakwater out of concrete bags, but none of that worked. So finally, after a lot of effort, a lot of campaigning with the zoning board, the planning board, the DEP, CAFRA, we finally got authorization to build the marina. And after the marina was built, it really saved Seaview Harbor, because now they have 2 nice lagoons, and the value of the homes went up dramatically. Mm-hmm. But I really saw that through, and it was a lot of work and effort, but it turned out really nice. Okay. Actually, Seaview Harbor Marina, a lot of people don't know it, it's the 3rd largest marina on the New Jersey coast.
I know they have some beautiful boats out there. A couple times we've been out there. You have served as mayor for 29 of your 33 years in office. I put together a chart to show you other long-term serving individuals as mayor in the 308 years history of Egg Harbor Township. And if you look at the chart, you can see that the nearest person to serve as a mayor after you is Joel Adams, who has 16 years, Charlie Canali 14 years, John Blackman 12, John Summers 10. John Summers and Joel Adams, you have to go back to the late 1700s or 1800s. We do have streets named after them. The Summers name is well known, as well as the Adams family. How do you see yourself when you look at a chart that, no one in 300 and some plus years of Egg Harbor Township have come anywhere near putting in the amount of years in service as a mayor of the community?
Well, God rest his soul, Bob Burns used to say that the emblem was a pilgrim and an Indian, and the pilgrim was me.
You've been along that long, right?
But it makes me proud that I served, and I think I served during the most difficult times. I really do. We really struggled when the Pinelands Act forced all the growth on Egg Harbor Township. Mm-hmm. Our educational system, our municipal services, and so forth.
Okay. Well, your service to residents of Egg Harbor Township hasn't been limited strictly to serving on township committee, being mayor. You've been involved in other organizations and groups. We have some of them listed on the upcoming chart to let the viewers know what type of service you've done. You were on the zoning board. Well, let's start with the top of the chart. The first thing is you were the state senator, and probably the only state senator ever from Egg Harbor Township, as far as I know.
As far as I know.
We've had at least 3 assembly people that I recall, Mr. Gaffney, Mr. Nichols, and Vince Palestina recently.
Right.
So, the fact that you got to serve our residents also on a statewide level, and as the chart on the TV screen shows, you served on the zoning board as your first foray into government in Egg Harbor Township, and also as an MUA commissioner for many years, president of the Golf Corporation. I developed the first golf course on landfill state in New Jersey. And you're currently still serving the residents on the SJTA as a commissioner for the last 4 years. Is that something that you're going to be able to continue in retirement?
Well, that's actually up to the governor of the state of New Jersey if he wants to reappoint me or not. Mm-hmm. I'm actually a holdover at this point in time, but they haven't indicated that they're replacing me. So it's an important position. It's a volunteer position. It's not a paid position. Mm-hmm. And it operates the expressway and the Atlantic City International Airport, and hopefully someday that we'll be able to get some additional airlines in there to service the rest of the country.
Okay. Before we speak about some other issues, there were some folks that wanted to be here today that couldn't make it, so we're able to get video statements from them. So I believe we'll have Congressman Lobiondo, State Senator Brown, and County Executive Levison coming up on the screen.
When I originally got the idea in my head to run for Congress, almost everybody told me that I was completely nuts. I was a kid who grew up on a farm in Rosenhain, New Jersey, that's close to Vineland and Bridgeton. I had served in the state legislature representing Cumberland and Cape May. Basically knew no one in Atlantic County, and no one knew me. So as I decided that I was going to do this, I get a call from Sonny McCullough. I had heard his name, didn't know much about him. We sat down, we had a cup of coffee, and Sonny started talking to me about his involvement. And it was pretty clear very quickly that Sonny was someone really extraordinary. Sonny decided that he was going to support me. Without going into it, it was not a popular thing at the time. We talked about that. He said, I don't care, I believe in you. And when I believe in somebody, I don't go halfway. He wasn't kidding. He would give me a time and place to meet. We'd jump in his car. He would take me around. When nobody knew me, and I don't think many people cared, Sonny gave this stranger from Cumberland County credibility and motivation. He kept mentoring me on Atlantic County politics, about how to do things. Maybe more importantly, he sort of gave me a map of the minefield and told me the things to be careful of, the things to avoid, the things to emphasize, and gave me sort of a crash PhD course in Atlantic County and in South Jersey that I would have not had any idea about. So some of you may want to thank Sonny, some of you might want to blame Sonny for giving me that jump start, but I've always remembered that, and the one thing in this game that a lot of us are in, you don't forget your friends.
Well, I have the good fortune to have known Sonny for over 25 years. When I first got back from the war in 91, 92, he had the kindness and the foresight to appoint me as prosecutor in Harbor Township. And a friendship and a relationship grew from there, and he's been somebody who you look at as a father figure throughout my life. And so I've been very privileged to know him. I consider his whole family my family, and he's just wonderful from top to bottom.
I've known Sonny McCullough for close to 60 years, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. Sonny's a charmer. He's just a man's man, and I just really enjoy him. And I'll miss him as an elected official. I wish him well. God bless you, Sonny.
So, Sonny, there's three, a federal official, a state official, a county official singing your praise. You want to tell some stories, anecdotes you may have about these three individuals?
Well, I'm proud of all three of them. Frank Lobiondo, our congressman, currently our congressman, I thought he did a great job in Washington. I think Washington's going to miss him. I liked the way he served. I liked his politics. He would cross the political line when it was necessary, and he felt it was the right thing to do. I don't think we have enough of that right now in Washington or in politics in general. Chris Brown, as he said on the video, when he came out of the war, not too many people knew Chris Brown. He had a tough bringing up. His mother and dad separated, and his mother went away for a good portion of Chris's life. And I had the opportunity, with the advice from Frank Finnerty, to appoint Chris as our prosecutor. And if you know how busy our courts are, that was a big jump start for young Chris Brown, the attorney. And from there, when they changed the rules and said that the defense attorneys could not serve as prosecutors, he couldn't give up his defense work, so we moved him over to the very busy planning board of Harbor Township. And then he went on to serve as a municipal judge over in Galway. And I'm proud to say that I think Chris has done a very good job serving as assemblyman in the state and also now senator. Denny Levis and I go back to high school. Denny actually dated my wife, and we've been friends for a long time. I usually have lunch with Denny 2 or 3 times a month, talk about county issues, or just socially have a good time with some of the other, people that are involved with elected positions. So that's my thing with them.
So your personal friendships with these 3 individuals really did benefit the residents of Egg Harbor Township and allowed you to get things done for the township from those levels because of your personal relationships?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know how other mayors, but I mean, I could call any one of those individuals up in the middle of the night and say, look, I got a problem, and I need your help, and they would respond to me, and I've done that.
All right.
The same thing with when we had Frank Bowles as sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
I really was so grateful that when we had some really serious problems, never in the past could I call a sheriff up and say, hey, we have traffic lights out all over the town. Can you give us some support? And he would send sheriff officers over and man intersections and relieve our police officers so they could go and do some other work along with our firefighters.
Well, I do remember during Superstorm Sandy, the sheriff's office was extremely beneficial because we had power outages for several days, and he sent county officers to Zion and Ocean Heights, Zion and English Creek, Delilah Road, and it certainly made life easier for our police department and our residents. So you're right, he brought something to the sheriff's office that we didn't have before from his predecessors.
And the derecho,
Yes.
he helped us out in the derecho. I called him at 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, Frank, I need help. And he without hesitation, he said, I'll be there. Tell me how many guys you need.
Okay.
So that was great.
And one of the things during your tenure with Township Committee, especially between 1994, after we went into compliance with Pinelands in 93 and through to 2008, we added 20,000 residents, more than 1,000 residents a year, and that you and the Township Committee was able to effectively deal with that type of growth. How do you think that you folks were able to stay ahead of the curve during that growing period in Egg Harbor Township?
Well, I think most people know that I was opposed to going into compliance with the Pinelands Act. I knew it was going to cause Egg Harbor Township a tremendous amount of problems, financially, tax-wise, educational-wise, and infrastructure-wise, and everything that has to do with growth. I think we were very fortunate that we had a really qualified planning and zoning board members that understood and realized the importance of really good planning, and that's how we got through it. The biggest impact, of course, was on the educational system. I mean, we were putting anywhere from 500, 600, 700 children in the school system every year. We were educating them in trailers. We had to build new schools every 3 or 4 years. It was very difficult. It was financially difficult, and educationally it was very difficult. Our public safety, God bless our firefighters, they're volunteers, still volunteers. I know you want to talk about that later. And our police officers, public safety was very important. Mm-hmm. And public works, probably the second impacted service was public works after schools.
Yeah, I would argue that Public Works is probably the #1 service because residents, if they don't get their garbage collected, they let us know right away, or a pothole fix. We become aware of that because they see those services more than they see maybe a police officer. They need a police officer in an emergency, but they do need Public Works for everyday services. Now,
let me add something to that, Peter. One of the things I hear some of the Atlantic City officials saying that Egg Harbor Township benefited from what took place in Atlantic City, the development of the gaming industry. That was a detriment to Egg Harbor Township because people came from all over the world to work in the casino industry, and where did they move to? They moved to Egg Harbor Township because we had to build all these houses. So it was really tough. And I even hear today that how Atlantic City goes is how successful the rest of the communities. It was a negative as far as I was concerned.
Well, we became the bedroom community.
Yep.
and we didn't get the commercial ratables immediately, and a single family home with children go to school doesn't pay their fair share in taxes, because if you have 2 kids in school, that's $20,000 a year, and you're paying $7,000 a year in taxes. So I agree with you. It was a big drain on us for many years until the commercial ratables came along 10 years later for that. Now, the other issue that you had to deal with when you first got in office early was water and sewer issues. There was contamination in the Pleasant Woods section of the township. There was contamination around the landfill, Greater Zion Park area, Anchorage Point, Seaview Harbor had water and sewer issues. You want to share with everyone, how you tackled the issues of water and sewer?
Well, we work close with the CAFRA and the DEP. We utilize grants. We also utilize some developers' money. For instance, Harbor Pines wanted to develop, and we needed about $1 million to bring the big pipe in from Summers Point because of the heavy contamination in the Greater Zion Park area. And finally, when we did have enough money to provide sewer and water for that area, it was probably, in the history of the mainland, the largest capital program that was ever undertaken. And it was a struggle. The Delilah Oaks area had contamination that was man-made by illegal dumping. The landfill was creating some problems on Ocean Heights Avenue. It was probably one of the most difficult things that I ever had to deal with, because when the DEP or the Atlantic County Health Department knocked on an individual's door and gave him a letter saying, please don't drink the water. In fact, in some cases they said, don't even take a shower. That's how bad the contamination was. And we would have these gigantic meetings where we used to have to use the auditorium of the school. Were you with us then?
Yes.
We used to have to use the auditorium of the school. People would come out and they were upset with the municipal government. They were upset with me, like I caused the contamination. But we got through it. We worked with the New Jersey American Water Company. They were helpful. Our MUA was very good. So it was tough times, Peter.
Yeah, those water and sewer issues were not in one section of the township. They were throughout the township, and those were my early years here, and we systematically went through each section, addressed it, in partnership and cooperation, and we resolved those issues for the residents. One of the other things that took place is, with all the growth, we expanded the municipal building 3 times. We built a new public works building. We built a new community center. The community center we have is, still call it new, but it's 10 years old. We have over 1,000 people a week which goes through that building. So, you were able to foresee these things come in and plan for them and address them during your career.
Well, I had a lot of help. You were helpful. We had great department heads. I thought we were very fortunate to have the township committee. Really had some great township committee people, good leaders. So it wasn't all done by me. They were terrific, and our planning and zoning board was great. So we got through it.
You mentioned all the kids and the recreation needs. Well, the number of parks we had almost grew exponentially during that period of time. When you first took office, there was no Tony Canale Park, there was no Bargaintown Park. Charles Kirk Park was half the size it is today.
Right.
He expanded Veterans Park. You seem to have stayed ahead of those things before people came to meetings demanding recreational. I think you foresaw the need with the 400 or 500 children a year coming in, that they need a place to go play and activities to engage in.
Well, the demand for recreation was so tremendous that early on in the 80s and the 90s, the township committee was inundated with recreation needs, and different organizations coming in and say, we need this, we need that we had to create the Recreation Commission so they could deal with the recreation problems, and they were recreation problems. And we got through it. We didn't have any soccer fields, we didn't have any lacrosse fields. Football was expanding. We ended up with, at one point in time, 3 different organizations had football programs. Baseball was, I don't know how many kids went through the baseball program, thousands.
with recreation is the nature reserve. For some of our viewers, we had an illegal soil mining operation taking place along Zion Road back in the early 90s. The township took them to court, got a judgment against them. We waited 10 years, we foreclosed on it. Now we have this 265-acre nature reserve park, which is very unique in southern New Jersey, which is really a gem in the township. And I know you supported it. Committeeman Joe Cafaro was a big supporter. Township Solicitor Freeman was a big supporter. I think the community has embraced that park as a natural area to preserve, the character of the old Egg Harbor Township.
I'm amazed how people just love that park. They go there, they walk, they take their kids, they walk their dogs. They like it when it snows. They like it. It is really a real plus for Egg Harbor Township, and people from all over that area, not just Egg Harbor Township, come and utilize it, because I hear it from the Summers Point people and some of the Linwood people. It's really a beautiful, beautiful park, and Joe Cafaro and Mark Freeman and a few other people really made it happen, including you, Peter.
Now, the other thing I want to use an example is how you and the Township Committee responds to crisis or issues. 2 years ago, we had senior citizens coming saying they need to play pickleball.
Yeah.
And the township very quickly addressed their concerns, and we built pickleball courts up at Delilah Oaks, and also we have indoor pickleball courts now. So have you got to play pickleball yet?
I was a squash player for 30-some years, and I played at a pretty high level, played all over the world. Don't you know, I tried pickleball, I guess, 6 months ago. First day I tried it, pulled a hamstring. Haven't gone back to it.
Okay.
One of my buddies, Jack McCullough's, who you know, who's an orthopedic surgeon, says he sees more injuries from the senior citizens from pickleball, and he warned me, don't play pickleball.
Well, for those seniors listening, if you don't play it, don't get into it.
Well, when I move back to Atlantic City, I'm going to try to convince the Ocean Club, that's where I'm moving to easily convert their tennis courts into pickleball courts, because I don't see a lot of activity on the tennis courts anymore. But pickleball, seniors can play. It's like slow motion tennis on a smaller court, and people they just love the game.
One of the things that you were heavily involved in, which may be part of your long-term legacy in some people's mind, is the closing of Pinelands Park. What was the impact of having that park sitting in the heart of Bargaintown on the community at large?
Well, it was disgraceful, because quite frankly, the county and BFI was supposed to close that during the mid-'80s, and they couldn't find a location for where they could put the trash for Atlantic County, and they kept it open, and the smells, the stench, the truck traffic from all over Atlantic County, dumping their trash there, rats, seagulls, people who lived around it, Mount Airy, even over onto Zion Road, when the wind was blowing a certain way, they had to close their windows. People living nearby couldn't even have cookouts in their backyard. It was terrible.
The ACUA opened up a landfill on Dowdy Road. You want to share how that has benefited the township?
Well, again, if every day there was an issue in the local newspapers about one town's mayor complaining he didn't want it in his backyard, even the western section where they had a lot of open areas, there was fights. The freeholders didn't want to deal with it, and the landfill on Ocean Heights Avenue was now at maximum, and it had to close. So I worked out a deal with Atlantic County that if we could put it over in the industrial area, we could alleviate the problems on Ocean Heights Avenue, and they could develop a state-of-the-art landfill facility there. And there was a host community benefit that had to be worked out. And that was a real struggle between myself and the people on the Atlantic County MUA and Atlantic County freeholders and the Atlantic County administration. We finally worked out a deal that every ton of trash that goes into the landfill, we get $5 and more. And that means millions of dollars to the taxpayers of Egg Harbor Township.
Yeah, so as your business administrator, I could tell you that since 1990, we've collected over $40 million. The $5 fee from 1990 is now $7 and some change because you negotiate a CPI increase in that. So that certainly has stabilized our taxes and also is convenient for us. We don't have to leave town to dispose of our waste. So we don't, if we had to go to Buena Vista or Western Park, our trucks would lose 45 minutes a day just driving out and driving back, where we run our routes so they go towards the landfill, so we minimize that time. Pinelands Park landfill is now called McCullough's Emerald Golf Links, and the Township Committee named it for you in 1998 before it opened because, as I understand, as early as 1986, you started campaigning that we have to convert this into a better use. We can't just leave a fallow one there. So why was this project, so dear to you and so important? I don't believe in 1986 you thought there was a golf course be built there, but what was the motivation to, campaign to come up with an end use for the landfill?
Well, first of all, it was such a detriment to Egg Harbor Township, especially to the people who had to live around there and travel past it on a daily basis. What we did is we created a group of men and women to come up with an idea on what we could do with the closed landfill. At the time, there was only a few golf courses in the area. There was, I think, Atlantic City Country Club, Linwood, Seaview Country Club, Mays Landing, and that was about it. And again, the casino industry was in its really developing stages. So a group of people, a nonpartisan group of people got together, and they made the recommendation to the governing body that to create a affordable golf course, a nice golf course. Oh, by the way, I missed one. Green Tree was a county course at the time too. That the average guy could play golf, financially, and that's how it started. And as far as the name goes, I don't know if you know this, Peter, but Bob Burns was the one that said this thing should be named McCullough's. I don't know if you were you on the, yeah, you had to be around.
Yeah, I was around.
Yeah, he's the one that came up with that. And this was not a Republican issue. This was a Democrat and Republican issue because Bob Burns sort of headed up the Democratic Party in Egg Harbor Township, and he supported it. In fact, the day that we opened the golf course, he was there with Don Williams,
Broadcasting live
from the golf course.
Well, the other thing with former Mayor Burns is in 1991 when he took office, you put him on the ad hoc committees as a newly elected person to give his input. And when he was mayor in 1995, he sent me to a golf conference in Orlando, Florida area, and basically said to me, we're going to do this golf course on the landfill, and you need to go figure out how to manage it and work it. So you're right, it's always been a bipartisan support since day one, because I think everybody realized the benefit to the community by eliminating that negative eyesore on Ocean Heights Avenue.
And when that bond is paid off, just like the bond we have for the Atlantic Community Center, it is going to be a huge moneymaker for Egg Harbor Township. Was
this something that you wanted the township to run, or were you looking at the private sector to be the operator of the course?
I thought that a nonprofit should operate the golf course, and that's basically what it is. And I have to tell you, I was not a golfer. I never played golf. And when the golf course was built and they named it McCullough's Emerald Golf Links, my wife said to me one day, you ought to learn how to play golf. You got a golf course named after you. And that was it. I was not a golfer.
And I just want to point out to the listeners that the golf course has been an economic stimulus in that area.
Oh, yeah.
I went through some properties that were developed afterwards, and between 2001 2010, there were 9 commercial properties built within a stone's throw of the golf course, the Walgreens, the Ace Hardware, West Ocean First Bank, the properties across the street. Those properties pay over $400,000 a year in property taxes. And speaking to some of those individuals on the development project, they said to me that if it was still a landfill, we would not be here, but since there's a golf course and the traffic that takes place there, that's why we're here now. And they really turned Ocean Heights Avenue and Zion Road into pretty much our downtown of Egg Harbor Township.
And you know, Peter, we have raised thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for local charities and groups, and really it supported some of the local athletic groups.
Well, also since June of 2002 when we opened, we've had close to 475,000 individuals play golf there. So people are using it, they're appreciating it. And we do have some higher end golf courses in the township in Ballamore, Twistone, and Harbor Pines, and we provide them with a moderately priced golf course of great quality to play. The township is still able to maintain a volunteer fire company, and most towns our size has a paid department. A lot of the Barrier Island towns, a lot smaller than us, have it paid. What do you believe is our ability in Egg Harbor Township to maintain a volunteer fire department?
You know, Peter, I have marveled about that for most of my career in Egg Harbor Township. The dedication of the men and women of the Egg Harbor Township Volunteer Fire Company is amazing. The township committees through the years have supported the needs of the fire department. And I think that's what made a good relationship between the volunteers and the elected officials. We provide them with the tools they need. We provide them with the fire trucks. We do it on an annual basis. We keep them up to date. Their training is terrific. If people only realized the amount of hours that our firefighters have to put in just to be trained, so that we have not only a qualified fire company, but one that's recognized in the area as one of the finest. They can do just about anything any paid department can do. In fact, they can do more than some of the paid departments in the area, the smaller departments.
Well, one of the things the Township Committee did many years ago is to develop a replacement program for fire trucks. That the life expectancy of our fire trucks is somewhere between 20 to 25 years. So we're not putting a lot of money into it, but they have good quality equipment to do it. And also, I think it was 2001, the voters approved the LOSAP program, which was an incentive to become a volunteer firefighter. A LOSAP is basically a retirement plan for the volunteer firefighters. They get somewhere around $1,600 a year for putting in so many hours as a volunteer fireman. And I think they understand that that's a nice incentive to keep on volunteering for us. Our police department, when you were elected, had a little bit more than 40 officers. At one time, we were up to 101. Now we're down to 86. How has your interaction with the police department been over the past 33 years?
I've always had a good relationship with the police department. Again, we provide them with the tools they need to operate what is recognized as one of the finest police departments in the Delaware Valley. I think we've been credited 4 times, and not another company in the state, the department in the state, has met that goal. We really are very patient on who we hire to be police officers. We give a test. It's called the Chief's Test. There's competition for promotion within the ranks of the police department, and I think the governing body has had a good relationship with the, and as you have too, with the police department.
Well, you've worked for 5 chiefs during your career. All been good experiences?
I would say lately it's been rather good.
Okay. Now, for a while, we were providing security at Atlantic City International Airport. And I know that was dear to the police department's heart, your heart, that we had that presence there since the airport's in our town, the terminal's in our town. Any feedback being on SJTA as to how that works now with the state police being out there?
Well, that was one of the things that disappointed me, that after 9/11, the governor sent the state police in. Our police department was trained and worked with the FBI. We had dogs that did bomb sniffing and narcotics sniffing. We were trained in every facet of airport protection, and it was disappointing when the state police saw what I thought was an easy job, and they came in and took it away from our local police departments. I really am sort of bitter about that aspect of the SJTA and whatever, but quite frankly, Peter, I don't know that they're ever going to wrestle it away. we can provide the same, if not better, service than the state police with our local department at a lot less money.
Well, we were doing it for almost 40% less than what the state police were doing. They took over, so while it's still the taxpayers paying the bill, the state would compensate us for it, but now they're paying their own state police for it, and I think they're being shortchanged. Our officers were invested in that with the security. Our officers knew the people who went through the airport on a regular basis. They could recognize suspicious activity. When you go to the airport now, you rarely see the same trooper standing around out there, if you see them at all anymore, and you don't have that continuity of the people knowing their beat, so to speak.
Well, the fact of the matter is, when our police department was here, and there was a period where we shared it with the state police, our officers would go through the parking lot and they would find more stolen cars. They'd run tags and so forth. They actually did a better job out there, and again, it's disappointing that they decided to take that away from us. And just so the taxpayers know, it was paid for by the South Jersey Transportation, not by the local taxpayer. And if there's an arrest made, it's our prosecutor that's got to have the trial, and it's our courts that the individuals have to go through. So if the state police make an arrest there, they got to go through Harbor Township's court system.
Well, during your tenure on Township Committee, your 33 years, you worked with 22 members of Township Committee. They all couldn't be pleasant. I know there's very unique personalities there, and maybe to refresh your recollection, I did have a chart prepared which shows everybody that you worked with over the time. So some individuals were only overlapped for a year or whatever. Some you had 20 years, 10 years service with.
I was really proud of most of all of them, quite frankly. 99% of the people who served in the township did it for the right reason.
Yeah, I think one of the things that chart showed is the last several people on it have all had long tenure. And I think that's attributable to your leadership, is that the voters realize that having a stable government is very important to have an efficient government. Well, we have a couple of videos from some former members of Township Committee that wanted to express their viewpoint of serving with you that weren't able to be here today.
Okay.
Well, I've known Sonny since we were probably 18, 19 years old, and we went way back, and Sonny ended up going to Atlantic High. I went to Pleasantville High, and we got together again when I was a fire marshal here in Atlantic City. Then I ran for office, and Sonny ran for office. I was Sonny's deputy mayor while he was the mayor of the township, and had a great working relationship with Sonny. We kind of had the same ideas of how the township should run and how the state should leave us alone, and had a real good time my whole time with Sonny over my whole lifetime. He's a good friend, and I have nothing bad to say about Sonny McCullough. He's a good man. He worked hard for the township and did a good job for all these years. That's it.
I really enjoyed the time I spent on Egg Harbor Township Committee with Sonny and the entire committee. Sonny McCullough was a mayor who believed in his fire department, the volunteers. He believed in the employees. He believed in the city and the people. He always thanked the residents of Egg Harbor Township at Christmas time for all the lights that they took the time to put up, which I always thought was really unique and special as a mayor.
One of the things that John Risley mentioned there was your support of volunteers. You started Volunteers Day your very first year in office. This celebrated our 33rd anniversary of Volunteers Day. We'd like to share with the viewers how that came to be.
Well, I was just amazed as I learned more and more about Egg Harbor Township coming from Atlantic City. What it took to operate Egg Harbor Township. I always said, if we didn't have the volunteers serving in all the different capacities, this town could not operate and function like it does and be a good government. So I thought, why don't we pick one day, a Saturday, a weekend, And we reward all our volunteers, all the volunteers, whether it be firefighters, planning board members, zoning board members, recreation, whatever, and have a party. Ask the local restaurants if they would provide free food. Go to all the different retail outlets that we have in Egg Harbor Township. Ask them if they would put together some type of nice gift package. And that's how it started. And we moved it around from year to year. Now we have it at the community center, which makes it very nice because we don't have to worry about the weather. So we bring all the volunteers together on an afternoon and on a Saturday, and we say thank you to them, and they have a ball. And we give them gifts, and they go away happy, and thank God, and thank you for the great volunteers that serve this municipality.
Well, I could tell you, having attended about 20 of them, that the volunteers certainly appreciate the generosity of the Township Committee and the recognition, and the local merchants that do contribute to it. Now, having served 33 years on the Township Committee, the Egg Harbor Township is 308 years old now, and you're the longest tenured member of the Township Committee that we've ever had. What do you believe contributed to your longevity for putting in so many years for the residents?
Well, first of all, you have to run a good political campaign. If you don't get elected, you can't do anything. I always wanted to keep the taxes down. I was always concerned about the school taxes. They were hard to control because of what I explained earlier in the show about the growth of the educational system. I was always a proponent of trying to help the taxpayers out most of all. And secondly, providing good standard municipal services at a reasonable cost. I think that was really important. Make sure that we had the recreation for our children, make sure that we had safety for our residents, and make sure we had clean streets. And I think we have a really terrific administration. We have good department heads. Peter, you've done an outstanding job. The governing body through the years saw fit to elect me, and every year you have to get elected to the mayor's position. You get elected to a 3-year term, and then you get appointed mayor by the governing body. And they've done that for 28 or 29 years for me. I love the township. I'm going to miss the township. I'm going to miss my years of service to the township, but I'm not moving too far away, so.
Okay. I have a chart that is up on the TV screen now, which shows your length of service relative to everyone else. Other than Mr. Kashu, from 46 to 72, most of the people with the long service were in the 1800s.
Yeah.
When we were probably a small town of 2,000, 3,000 people, where they had to ask you to run for office because it was such a small town in such a large area.
I think it's important, continuity, especially during my tenure and what was going on in the township with the growth of the township, that we had a continuity at the mayor's seat. Mm-hmm. Bob Burns, I have to say, when he was the mayor, I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yes.
Of course, I was on the committee. I was helping him. We all worked together pretty good. You worked good with him, and usually when the party changes, so goes the administrator. But that didn't happen, and that was a good thing. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. Politics today are different. Most elected officials are A personalities. Everybody wants to be mayor, and there may be challenges when it comes to choosing a mayor in the future.
I think one of the stabilities of Egg Harbor Township is the tenure of department heads. I've been the administrator for 29 years, which is almost unheard of in my profession.
Right.
Our public works director, Al Simerson's been there for 22 years. Eileen Tedesco, who's now the township clerk for about the last 12 years, has been in that office since 1979. I think we hired her when she was 16 or 17. But our construction official has been with us 14 years, our tax collector some amount of time. And I really think when you have that type of dedicated staff that knows what to do, it makes elected officials' job easier to serve because you don't have to worry about, do they really know what they're doing? I do have another video of the current Township Committee members. They wanted to participate in it, but due to work constraints, they couldn't have been here today. So if they can roll the video of current Township Committee members.
I was appointed by the Township Committee 20-something years ago with the good graces of Sonny McCullough, who I love dearly. Sonny has inspired us. He has been my mentor, and he has led the Republican Club of EHT to success, and he's been a successful mayor. I always say when people ask me how things in Egg Harbor Township, I tell them that Sonny McCullough is the concrete and Peter Miller's the glue that holds this town together. A lot of competing influences have been here through the years, and Sonny has shown the leadership for the township and for the people of EHT better than anybody knows.
I've been serving for 8 years now with Sonny, and one thing I found is that he has such a deep caring for the community. He's been a great mentor to me, no doubt, but he just cares. But I do have a funny story. When I started in 2010, I started to put together and explore a wildlife refuge, or what we now call the nature reserve. And Sonny had told me, yeah, Joe, it's a good idea. I don't care what you do, just don't spend a lot of money. You know, and he's just always been great. He's served the community beautifully.
I met Mayor McCullough probably 20 years ago, but I had the privilege of working with him when he was a senator. And I really got to see how he worked with people and how he dealt with issues one-on-one. He would have been a great senator for a long term. We only wish he had gotten it. But because of that, I got into politics a little more, and he encouraged me to go for Township Committee, opened the door for me, gave me some encouragement. And so all of the good times we're having today, and maybe not so good times we're having today, I get to blame on Sonny.
He's been a great leader of our township. I've enjoyed working with him. He's always guided us right, even through hard times and bad times. We'll miss Sonny. They're large shoes to fill, but we'll do our best to continue the track he put us on in Egg Harbor Township to make this a good community.
He's the most tenacious guy I ever met, and it's been a great thing for Egg Harbor Township because when he puts his mind to something, he does it. That's why he served so well on Egg Harbor Township, because when he got his mind up to something, he would not stop. He was like a pit bull. And by the way, I enjoyed every moment being on the Township Committee. There's been a lot of great people, a lot of good things have been done.
Any comments about your current cohorts on the Township Committee?
I think the taxpayers and the residents of Egg Harbor Township are so fortunate. You have Laura Frommer, who her background is finance. She's an accountant. She has been instrumental in guiding the Recreation Commission and making sure that the recreation for this community is the best. Joe Cafaro, who had a career in the casino industry and management positions, also headed up the Division of Motor Vehicles for South Jersey. He's just a terrific hard worker. Frank Finnerty, who is going off the Township Committee this year, was in the public safety. He was a science teacher. He served on the Freeholder Board. Paul Hodson, who I believe and I'm hoping that since he's the deputy mayor right now, becomes the mayor. He's got a tremendous background in law enforcement. He was a police officer in Summers Point. He was a firefighter in Summers Point. He went on to be in major crimes with the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office. He served on the Board of Education. He is a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Army Reserve. He is currently the head of the security for the FAA, and he has a terrific background. Who am I missing now? I got Frank Bowes has now been elected to the Township Committee. Frank Bowes is a former captain of police in Pleasantville. He was the Atlantic County Sheriff for 2 terms, I think 8 years. Did a fabulous job there. Andrew Parker is a young Afro-American first African American to be elected to the township governing body. He's a teacher in Atlantic City. He was an outstanding athlete in his youth. He participates in recreation, and he'll be a real good addition to the township committee. Am I missing?
No, I think you got them all there. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the position of township administrator. It didn't exist before you took office. You had it created. Can you share with us why you thought that position was important and why you lobbied for it?
Well, when I was elected, and again, if you were tuned into the beginning of the program, my name was written in. It was not my desire to be on the governing body. I was a businessman. I had 2 corporations and multiple business locations, and I was raising a sort of a large family. But being a businessman, and when I was elected, I looked at this town. I had to sit with the department heads on Saturday mornings because I was working to put together budgets, and I campaigned that a municipality the size of Egg Harbor Township, a corporation with the amount of money it took to operate it, it shouldn't be run by just part-time elected officials who are not trained in either politics or in operating a government. So I campaigned and convinced the majority of the Township Committee that we should do a national search for a professional administrator. The first administrator was Bob Albertson. Because of the turmoil that was taking place politically, Bob made a decision that he was not going to stay with Egg Harbor Township. And then we went through a period where we didn't have an administrator. And then we did another national search, and we hired Peter Miller 29 years ago?
Yes, sir.
29 years ago, which is very unusual because we've had political change, political atmospheres when they change. Usually the administrator is usually let go. But Peter has operated this town on a day-to-day basis. I would get calls prior to having an administrator. Hey, the electricity's off, it's snowing, should we come into work today? All those things is not what part-time elected officials should be doing. Part-time elected officials are basically legislators. Let the professionals operate the town the way it's supposed to be operated. And I think that's the success of Egg Harbor Township. And I hope that they continue on that path after I'm gone.
Well, one of the questions you always ask somebody when they're retiring or leaving is, what would you like the residents to remember from your service to them for the 33 years you were in office?
Well, most of all, that I hope they realize that I really cared for Egg Harbor Township. I cared for the people of Egg Harbor Township. I wanted to do the best job I could possibly do. I wanted to try to make sure that we could have a good municipality operated at a reasonable cost. And again, I'm going to miss it. And one of the things I didn't mention, Peter, I was thinking about the other day, on Monday, today is Wednesday, Monday next week will be my last wedding performed. I have performed over 1,000 weddings. I've actually married entire families in this town. I've married the parents, and now I've married the children. And I'm probably going to miss that because that's one of the nice features of being mayor of the town.
Well, Mayor, it was an honor for me to host this program for you for your last forum. It's been an honor to work with you for the last 29 years. I know EHT will be different with you moving on. I'm counting on that the good government practices that you established, we're going to carry them on and honor your legacy. And on behalf of all residents and township staff, I just wish to thank you for your dedicated service to the residents of Egg Harbor Township.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much.